The Talk Shop Podcast, Episode 6, with my guest, Davon Oliver. Welcome back to the Talk Shop Podcast, where we talk with different artists about what got them into their field and some of the things that they recommend that worked for them, as well as their entire story, or most of it. My guest at this time is voice actor Davon Oliver, who some of you might know from My Hero Academia as the voice of the 6th user of One For All N. He's worked on multiple anime such as Skelton Knight in Another World, Blue Lock, My Hero Academia, and even provided voices in Trigun Stampede. I honestly can't wait for you guys to hear his story, how he got involved with anime, and so much more. Check out the interview right now. Welcome back to the podcast, and today I have with me Davon Oliver. How's it going, man?
I've been doing really good. I've been just relaxing, chilling. Everything's been going great.
That's good. So, before we get into talking, because we just had to do a tech reset, what are you playing right now?
I've been playing a lot of Smash Bros. I got back into Final Fantasy. I mean, again, for Smash Bros, I bought a new controller because my old one is old and it just was not working properly. But other than that, Final Fantasy, I like horror games. I'm trying to get back into Dead by Daylight. I'm really excited for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. I got to play the beta for that, and it was fantastic. But other than that, that's basically it.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good, man. Yeah, because right now I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I was just playing that before we started this. And there are some pretty good horror games that I've seen, like one that's coming out. I think it was called Blight.
Mhm.
It looked really good because it's like a zombie survival, and you're in the medieval times. And I was like, that looks sick. I'd like to try that. And it's cooperative completely. So yeah, that was good. So now we got video games out the way. Let's talk about you. Tell us about yourself. What is it that you do in the entertainment industry?
So, at the moment, the biggest thing I do is I work for Crunchyroll. I provide voices for ADR dubbing in anime, and that's really crazy to think about because that's a dream that I've had since I was like 4. So getting to do that is insane. But that's mainly what I've done. I've done a couple like small indie games, specifically an otome game called Bellautomata, which is really cool. They announced on Twitter recently that they got the funding for my character's route, so now I'm gonna get to be a love interest, and that's super fun.
Nice. So what was it like being, to start with the Otome game, what was it like being with the Otome in this game?
So in the Otome game, it was really cool. I got to audition for it. I found the booking it was fun because I was actually sick. So like my voice was all kind of yeah. And I was like, I'm probably not gonna book any of these, but it's due tomorrow. Send it, forget it. You did what you could do. And I ended up booking Klaus. And he's like this very intelligent, smart, but very ditzy and airheaded doctor, and he's super cool, and I love him, and he's one of my favorite characters I've ever voiced just because he's so ditzy.
Nice. That sounds fun. So you go from a Otome game, which you found on Casting Call Club, and I'm sure a lot of people are listening. They understand, hey, they're going through the same thing. They're going through auditioning on Casting Call Club, learning their way. You go from that, and now you're working for Crunchyroll, and you're doing role. In fact, you know what? What are some of the roles you have done from Crunchyroll? You go from a Otome game into Crunchyroll. What are some of the roles that you can speak of that you've been
Yeah.
casted for? Cast, not casted. Okay, cast for in Crunchyroll productions.
So my biggest, most notable roles, I'm in My Hero. I'm in, which is the 6th user of One For All. He's one
Nice.
of the former users of One For All. His quirk is Smokescreen. So basically, since he's one of the former users, he like lives in Deku's head now.
Hmm.
And Smokescreen basically just emits a purple smoke from like your body. So he can use it to just cover the area in smoke, whether it's like to blind the enemies or do a quick getaway. That's really it's like a support quirk. I'm in One Piece as 2 characters. I'm Hold'em and Kamijiro. Kamijiro is the lion that lives inside of Hold'em's stomach because he ate, I think it was the lion smile fruit.
Hmm.
So now he has a lion in his stomach that interacts with him. They fight a lot, and the lion can spit fire. I don't understand that a lot, but it's One Piece. We love it.
Exactly. things. So you got that. You were in. I but the first role I remember seeing you book was Skeleton Knight in Another World, right?
Yes, I was Celsica Dorman. He's like a butler for a couple episodes. That was the first role. It was really fun.
Nice. So tell us a bit about the process. Were you brought in? Did you record remotely?
So, I lived in Lufkin, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
represent very nowhere town. But I lived there and I started taking lessons. And after taking lessons for probably about a year and a half, 2 years, and going to college for theater, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna move out to the DFW area. I'm gonna like go to a bigger city that has more opportunities.
Right.
Um, and so in doing so, I was lucky enough to be able to afford to do that. And that opened the door to going in and not having to work remote.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very much like I knew some of the directors through taking classes. I knew other actors through taking classes with them. So I kind of already knew the community and like kind of had people I wanted to like hang out with when I got out here.
Right.
So then it was just a matter of getting in front of people once I got out here and meeting and making friends once I got out here. Um, it Looking back, it took like years for me to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got lucky enough that Jason Lord was directing the dub of Skelton Knight, and he called me in specifically for Celsica.
Right.
And so I got to go in and have my first session in the studio, which was wild and super fun. And since then, I've booked like, I want to say 7 or 8 named roles because I'm Ito Otoya and Blue Lock. I'm Martin Chandler and Magus Bride. And it's still like the first time, every time I get a booking, they're like, hey, can you come in and record for this? And it's like, yes! It's so fun.
That
Um,
is. Go
but
ahead.
the process is really nice. The process is really like you send auditions in once you get on the roster through like being in a Walla group or just
Right.
like a director calls you in. Once you're on the roster, you're on the roster. And then it's just, I just treat it, people call it networking. I don't care about that. I just make friends.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. I mean, it's even better when you're interacting with people and it's not like, oh, this is a job. It's like, oh, cool, another person. How's it going? My name is Davon Oliver, and just going from there, and then you have all these things that just happen from it as well.
Yeah. That's one thing too, is that's one thing I'll say is you can always be sure, like, networking's great, networking is necessary, like, absolutely, but like you got to know when to dial it back because
Right.
sometimes like you want it, you need it, you got to have it. But if you're not like personable and like there just to have a good time, I
Hmm.
feel like that gives kind of an impression that it's just a job. And I personally do this because I love it and it doesn't feel like a job.
Right.
And so I don't want it to feel like a job. That's why networking for me is always weird because I'm like, oh, I need to network, but I don't want to network.
It's like I just want to have fun.
Literally just what I do.
Yeah, that's nice. And like you said, when you stepped into the studio, was that your first time in a studio?
Yes, I had never been. Well, I'd been in. Yeah, yeah. That was my first time in a studio. Other than that, the biggest studio I'd been in was a whisper room. I had never been in like a full blown like this is a room with like a screen set up and a window for them to watch in. Like I think I'd been in one like that, but it
Hmm.
was very small scale. This was super cool. It gets hot in there, especially when you're doing Walla and there's a couple people in there. But that's why you can open the door,
Hmm.
and opening the door is always a good option because you don't want to overheat.
Yeah, definitely. And that's cool to hear that that was like one of your first times in a professional studio. And it reminded me of my first time. It's like I totally understand what it's like to step into that in space, and it's how enjoyable it gets, especially when you're doing things like dubs for anime, which is really cool. So congratulations for you. Um, okay, what is the process when you're approaching a script? Like either you get an audition or they say, "Hey, can you read for this?" What is your process?
So my process, my process will start with auditions. When I receive sides, whether it be for anime, video games, commercials, when I receive sides, the first thing I do is think about the genre or the medium I'm recording in. You can be recording, like I said, anime, commercials, video games, but then if you're recording character work, it could be video games, anime, cartoons, which are still different, live action, everything's like got a different vibe to it. So the first thing I do is go, what medium am I recording in?
Right.
Right now everyone's doing like natural reads, and I love that because it makes everything sound human.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously, unless they're not supposed to sound human, but everything sounds natural. um and so after I approach, what medium is this in? We'll say it's anime just for the sake of it.
Okay.
So now I'm reading anime side. So in my head, I'm like, this is an anime. How would I read this? But I don't want it to sound like, 1990s anime necessarily. I don't want to do like the massive yells unless it needs a massive yell, or like the really elongated kind of staccato choppy like lines.
Right.
So I really just like look at it, and then in my head I go, how would I react to this? I read what's happening, whether it's a sad scene, whether it's a happy scene, whether it's a, angry scene, depressing scene. I go, how would I, through my filter and through the character sides, the characters, this, and this is their vocal type. I'm going to mainly audition with my voice because that's my natural tone. But like, I can still pitch it up, or I can pitch it down, or I can make it gruff. Like you can do all that. But I really just go at it, figure out how the character, like if there's details, I do some research on what the character's been through,
Mm-hmm.
like what kind of, how they would react to something based on if they have trauma, if they don't have trauma, what they've been through, what kind of world they're in. Are they excited to be in this world? Is it an isekai, or is this a really depressing Attack on Titan kind of world? So I really take in all as much information as I can,
Mm-hmm.
put myself in that scenario, and try to figure out how I would react in this same situation under the same circumstances.
Right.
And I kind of just go forward with that.
Nice.
That's how I try to approach most of them. Video games, all of that. I try to keep it very like, I try to keep it as real as I can
Mm-hmm.
because I want it to be believable. I want it to be, how would I react? If I don't believe that's how I would react, that's not how I would be recording it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good process. You're really filtering this through like a form of realism. Like this
Yeah.
is, you want to get this, you want to communicate the realness of what's going on, stakes, what have you, and not just my voice sounds great, yay, this is entertaining things, versus these are serious stakes. This is what I'm trying to communicate. That's good. I like that. So you mentioned a lot of more naturalistic reads, and one of the trends that I've been hearing from others is that being on the rise. That would you agree? Like, is that what we're seeing so far, especially in the anime game?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. If you go and watch, Blue Lock,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that, and I've said one word, but that one word had a whole process because I was like, how would I say this in this situation? And me and the director, Rigg is amazing, Jonathan Rigg, and we went back and forth like, okay, this is how the sub could sound, or this is how the sub could sound, and we eventually just settle onto like sub because it's like a threat, but also the dude's bored.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole bunch of stuff. But I use Blue Lock as an example because you have Aaron Dismuke. If you he voices Chigiri Hyoma.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole article, a whole story that he got interviewed and told his story, and that is a prime example of someone bringing their own experience into it, because he had an experience in voice acting, the very same kind of thing that Chigiri had in soccer, suffered an injury and moved forward, and you never knew if you could recover, but they both came over that, and in doing so, there's an episode, I can't remember which episode, where Chigiri finally goes, I'm getting past this, I'm going to do what I love until I can't do it anymore. And Aaron brings an absolutely amazing performance to that because he relates to it. So I would say that realism is on the rise. Realism's on the rise because there's so many different anime that I've been watching recently,
Mm-hmm.
and games I've been playing recently where it sounds like they're in the moment. That's a person reacting, and not just like, oh, that was like a fighting yell. I could tell that it, like, you can hear the pain now.
Right.
Like you could before, but it's way more just like, it feels more connected.
It's invested too.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So now that we're talking about naturalistic reads and that they're on the rise, and even now in anime, because it's already been apparent that they were being used in video games, games like Metal Gear Solid, AAA, other AAA video games. But going from that as well, what would you recommend people do to train if they are like on a budget or just new? What are ways that would be good for a person to really get in that mindset and start being able to invest in the characters that they're told to voice?
So, this is a great question. I would say if you're new or if you're trying to like advance, probably from my experience, I would get a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a coach is always great if you can
Okay.
afford a coach. Um, and that's a great place to start. Get someone, do a vetting process. Are they currently still booking? How long have they been working in the industry? How
Mm-hmm.
much is it like, is it feasible for me to afford this? Um, and that's always a great place to start because coaches and a good coach will break you down on
Right.
like an acting level to find your center. And once you find your center, like I know, especially for me when I started, um, I always thought, and I'd always been told by like high school teachers, college teachers, and a couple different they were like, you have a good like innate sense of like, how you kind of want the read to sound. You've got a good instinct. But that's what I had was an instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And having an instinct is like a great place to start. But there's people that go good distances that learn that instinct that don't naturally like, they don't acting isn't their like niche
Mm-hmm.
that they start in. And so no matter who you are, I would get a coach because it can break you down and find that center. And from there, where that instinct starts, where your love for it starts, you can then branch out and then it's fun to put the pieces together. Then it's fun to go out and just study acting. Because one thing that I learned early on that kind of ingrained it in me
Mm-hmm.
is a really goofy term, but fun and great. It's acting is acting is acting is acting
Mm-hmm.
because you have on screen, you have, VO, you have all these different types of acting, but at the center of it, it's acting. You love acting, and that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Portraying the characters, telling the stories, inspiring people. And so again, I've said coach like 3 or 4 times, but if you don't want a coach, if you like can't afford a coach, a good place to start would be to crack open an acting book. Like there's I don't know the names of them off the top of my head, but there's like a ton of acting books. There's a website called I want to be a voice actor.com.
Right.
That's a fantastic website. It kind of just breaks everything down for you both on like an acting level and like a business level.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just anywhere you can find like obviously vet it, be like, is this written by someone who's like still booking, someone who has been booking for a while? Like make sure you're learning from people in the industry. But there's ways you can like just buy a book for like 15-20 bucks and then crack open that book, read it, mark it, study it. As long as you're putting your passion forward, you don't need like a $2,000 microphone. I started with a blue snowball that evolved to a blue Yeti. I didn't book anything on the blue snowball, but I booked something on the blue Yeti, and now I have a blue baby bottle. You don't need, that's just a couple $100 mic. You don't need a mic that's like, once you get to that point where it's like, I can afford a whisper room, that's a couple $1,000s. I can afford this expensive mic. I can afford this interface that goes with it because the interface is arguably, if not undoubtedly, more important than the microphone.
Yes, definitely. And I'm so glad to hear somebody else say that because as we've seen, especially online, people are like, hey, I'm new. What's the first mic do I get? I'm ready to drop $1,000. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Bro, like check your space and then your interface. And then we can talk about mic.
Oh, yeah. The
Mm-hmm.
space is the most important, then the interface, and then the microphone. The microphone just takes your voice, the interface digitizes it. So if you have a great mic that records you in beautiful quality, but you have a shitty space, then you're catching all the reverb. You're catching all like you need to have it coated. Put if it's a closet, have all your clothes in there, put foam on the walls, and then your interface is the thing that digitizes it. So now you have a really good space and a really good mic. But it sounds like crap because you have a bad interface. And the interface, and by bad interface, I mean like an interface that can't keep up with the quality of your mic.
Right.
Because if your mic can record up here, but the interface can only process this much, you're losing this much quality, and it's going to just sound more fragmented.
Right. Exactly. And that's really important for people to know, because now that now that projects are also starting to require people to have a home studio, they need to know how their tech works. And knowing, like you said, having a good mic but a shitty interface or a crappy space isn't going to do it. Mami Okaida actually had a workshop back in beginning of the pandemic, and they were like, the first thing we're going to check is if your space is recordable. After that, then we're going to check your connection to internet. That was nothing about the mic even came up until like 4 to 5 steps later.
Yeah. It's really important that and like you said, especially with places requiring that you have a home studio. There's so many people I know. I believe I want to say Sarah Sakura has only ever recorded remote.
Her and Gina Scarpa, I believe.
Yeah. So it's like there's people that make a living that don't live in LA, that don't live in Dallas, that don't live in New York. They live in different areas. And because they learned the audio engineering technique, like you have amazing audio engineers. You have like Jose Sandovals, the like Manny Aragons. They're fantastic. I'm nowhere near that level. I can just edit and make it sound kind of okay to like be an audition. I can make sure it doesn't sound bad, but like that's what you need. You need to learn depending on what DAW you're using, what DAW.
Right.
If you have Audacity, if you have Adobe Audition, whatever you have, learn it. Know how to make it sound nice. Because if you can make it sound nice, that's going to go leagues. Because that means I have a recordable audio space. I know how to edit some audio. Now, you should be getting paid extra if you're going to edit audio. But like, just in case you have like I can clip that out before I send it to you. Like I know how to cut it down because I'll record things for like indie games and we'll just go and I'll flub a take and I'll take it again. But before I send it to them, I can just chop that part out because it's like, I know where that's at, chop it out, send it. And it doesn't make it sound bad because I don't cut it too close. I don't cut it too far. I just chop that one thing out.
Yep, definitely. And it's really important for people now to know how their stuff works in order to send good quality takes to places that they're submitting to, especially if it's like to a company like Crunchyroll, or to any other companies that are like, hey, we need these specific specs. Speaking of which, does Crunchyroll, if you ever do send in audio, because I've heard they usually want the audio raw, but what is your experience with that?
So from my experience, I try to send my audio as raw as possible to them because obviously I do a little bit of cleanup if it needs a little bit of cleanup, but I try to keep it as close to raw as I can because what they're looking for is the performance. As long as I can keep it hearable, like, oh, I can hear him clearly. I don't have to turn it up or turn it down. If you can hear it, if it's not peaking, if it's not dropping out, we're set. I usually try to keep it around 30 decibels because that seems to be like a good sweet spot. If you're listening, you might need to turn it up a little bit or down a little bit depending on what you just have your headset set to. But for the most part, I just kind of put my headset on and it plays and I hear it. I'm like, that's good. For companies, I would say for companies, I can't speak for anyone really because I don't know the ins and outs of it. But from my experience, just if they have audio engineers and like people who edit audio really well, you can normally send it as raw as you can just because it's like, this is what my space sounds like unedited. This is what my take sounds like unedited. This is, if you're going to record remotely from there, they want to know what it sounds like before they edit it so that they can kind of judge how much work they're going to have to do to like get it to sound how they want it. If it's like, your space is great, this is fantastic, there's no outside audio, there's no reverb, good. Then just send it, like maybe gain it up a little bit or normalize it a little bit. Like as long as it's good and there's not a ton of background noise, like you can realistically have a little bit of background noise and they can just clean it out. So like a little bit of like just barely there where you can only hear it like once throughout the whole minute long take or however long it is.
Right.
That's okay as long as it's barely there.
That's good to know, especially since some people are like, I need to have my whole space, like the background noise, nothing. It's like, as long as it's not like a cat meowing or explosions in the background and very minimal, like you said, then you should be good.
Oh yeah, as
Yeah.
long as it's not like huge,
hmm
then you're probably good because it's like impossible to get it to zero unless you're like, you know, in a completely isolated booth.
or
And I can't even afford one of those yet.
like the quietest, I think there was an article online that said the quietest space on earth, and it was so padded down, people stepped in there and you could hear a pin drop. And they said, how much was this? Like a couple $1 million. I was like,
Dude,
okay, no.
it is insane. Like I know someone who has like a really good, it wasn't even like a whisper room. It was
hmm
like a custom built like studio space. And the way they got it completely isolated was it didn't touch the wall. It was barely away from the wall. It was elevated a little bit on some like I can't remember the kind of platform it was, but it was elevated so that it wasn't touching the floor, it wasn't touching the ceiling, and it was super padded. And it was a great recording space. But
hmm
like, do you know how much that probably cost?
This is a
Like
lot.
more than a couple months rent on my apartment. Like,
Definitely. It's like whoever built that, they're like, get that money, man.
right?
So, from going from space sound treating, and we were just talking about what do you advise that people do if they're new? What kind of research material have you run across that really helped you? Practices, anything like that?
So, I love taking classes. I haven't in a little while just because it's like, you know, I feel like once you take a certain amount of classes, if you're really just cramming the class and you're doing it a whole lot,
hmm
you got to give yourself like a little break to like let your body kind of implement it in your auditions and absorb it. But like I guarantee you the second I'm like, okay, cool, more classes, I'm going right back to it. I just love taking classes. I love learning. And so any research material I could say is just stuff I've learned from classes. Looking up, I want to be a voice actor, looking up good acting books. Research being an actor
hmm
before you research being a voice actor.
Definitely.
Because if you come into voice acting with no acting experience, you just want to voice act and you know how to like, and this isn't to discourage anyone. Like I was the same way. I didn't really like on stage acting, or I don't want to do on screen acting per se. I love voice acting, but having that appreciation for the art, the medium of acting, will take you so much further. So study acting. Anything you can find, anything from a good vetted source that's just about acting, breaking it down on a how to study the material. What does the script say? How to study scripts. Learn about script writing, learn about directing, learn from all the different perspectives of it so that you can kind of get your own grasp on it. And then obviously I've stepped into voice acting because I don't want to do the other stuff as much because I have the passion for that art. So knowing voice acting, knowing how anime sounds today, knowing like if you're wanting to do it and you watch anime like regularly, that's great. You're going to know how you want it to sound. You're going to know how the industry is already having it sound. But you need that acting knowledge, that love for acting to develop your own style. Because no, if you go in and it's like, oh, I can do a really good like Chris Sabat, we already have a Chris Sabat. If you can go in and you're like, I can do a really good Bradley Garrett, I can do a really good Matt Mercer. I guarantee you, the people you're naming, we already have them.
Yeah.
So you got to find your own style. And to me, that's the most fun part because I don't want to be the next, there's some people that have told me I sound, when I act, I can sound like Ben Diskin. And I'm like, I will take that as a compliment. I love that. But I don't want to be the next Ben Diskin, the next Matt Mercer, the next Liam O'Brien. I love all of them, but I want to be the first Davon Oliver. Like that, I want to develop my own style, my own sound, whether it be for the quiet boy, for the loud himbo pro tag, for the massive hulking like jackass. Like no matter what role, I want to have my own sound that fits it. That way I can become the only me there is to be in anime and video games and whatever else I do in voiceover.
That's great. That's great to hear because a lot of people I there was I think about a week ago for one of the groups I manage, someone said, "Hey, so Metal Gear Solid Delta got announced, which is great, and I'm happy about that." And then somebody announced in a voiceover group, "Hey, how do I throw my hat into this?" And it's like, oh, okay, here we go with a bunch of steps that I had to go through, union, and just even before that. And then somebody asked, "Okay, why are you interested in this role?" And they said, "I can do an impression. This is my best impression of Solid Snake." And then, like you mentioned, they already have a Solid Snake to do that, two to be exact. David Hayter and Kiefer Sutherland, and likely since it's three, they'll go with David Hayter. And like you just said right now, I want to be the best me in this medium that I can, and the only which you
Yeah.
which there's only one Davon Oliver. So that I think is really important for people to know that what it is that makes you unique as a person is the whole idea of this to bring out into what it is you're doing and just enjoy it.
Yeah. If you put the passion there, if you have the love for it and that goes in first, you'll find that, and impressions are great. Like voice matching is a thing. Like if that person's unavailable, it's like, okay, who can voice match? If your voice is close enough to that person already, if you can just tweak it a little bit to like sound like them, great. But they're not looking for they're not looking for impressions. They're not looking for what some people would call imitations. They don't want like, okay, well, we couldn't get Matt Mercer, so we'll get someone who sounds like Matt Mercer. They're gonna go for with someone who has a natural read that sounds close to Matt, but is still their own style, their own flavor. So working on becoming the best actor you can be, that's how you go places, because it's all about your love personally and your passion for it, and that shines through.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree about that. And it's always good to see others who are now doing this. So you're not just in the trenches, but you've hit your goals and you're just setting more goals at this point. So it's always good to hear. It's like, hey, this is how things work. It's more about being yourself or being true to what it is that makes you unique as a person versus I can copy the next person over here versus which, like you said, at some points they might need that, but most of the time it's like, can we find new blood?
Yeah, 99% of the time they're going to want you to sound like you,
Hmm.
whether it be slightly tweaked because they need him to be gravelly, or they want it to be a monster, or they want it to be this, that, or the other. It's going to be you. It's going to be your voice. Most of the roles that I've recorded for have just been like, especially my hero character, that was literally just me. It's
Hmm.
always funny when people are like, "Can you do the voice?" I'm like, "You're already hearing it." They had me just do my natural tone. It's so fun whenever like I had someone at my first con appearance
Hmm.
where I was not expecting it at all, but some people were walking up because they loved One Piece, and then this mom was walking by with her husband and their daughters, and they were like, "Oh my god! Like it's that character! It's the guy from My Hero!" And so I was like, "Why do you know my character? Why do you?" And they walked up and they said that they were like, "Can you do the voice?" And so I read some lines, and it was just me. And I remember looking at my friends who were there with me, and we all just kind of laughed. We were like, "That was an experience." And so getting to influence, this little dude walked up to me and he was like, "Dude, I love that character for One Piece. No matter who you are, if I'm able to influence you, it's like influence you in a good way. Not influence, inspire. There's the
Right.
word. If I'm able to inspire, if I'm able to, I guess, influence you to pursue your dream, if I'm able to inspire you to pursue your dream, if I'm able to give a positive influence or a positive outlook from my performance, and then also like if you ever meet me, that's I have a whole tattoo on my arm that's from an AJR song
Hmm.
that says, I hope I made you smile. That's all I ever wanted. That's my mantra. That's why I do this, to inspire, to be a positive influence. I just want to see everybody chase their dreams and to thrive. Like, do it. Just go for it. Like, study up, make a game plan, take classes, learn from people, develop your own style of it. Go out there and do it. Like, until you put your first foot forward, you're not going to go. And then once you do, you got to keep walking.
Hmm.
Sometimes you'll get hit and you'll fall backwards a little bit, but as long as you get up and get back to where you were, or if you always, like Denzel Washington said, fall forward, that's my favorite quote. Just fall forward. No matter if you fail, make sure you fail and learn from it. Never fall backwards, only fall forwards.
Yeah, I like that completely. Denzel Washington, just like you mentioned, that's a great quote from him. Plus, anyone looking to study acting, he's also a good reference as well. And
Fantastic reference.
obviously we have a reference here, Davon Oliver. So, so who has been your biggest supporter in your career, and what would you like to tell them?
I have a couple people that are my massive supporters. First off would be my wife, Alyssa. She's like literally just there with me, literally 24/7. If I do an audition and I sit there, I'm like, I get in my head. She immediately is just like, dude, you're doing it. Like, you've got this. You sound good. You know what you're doing. People like it. You like it. You're putting your heart into it. So having someone to remind you of that, if you ever get in your own head or if you start to doubt, that's always fantastic. Surround yourself with people who love and support. Other than that would be my grandparents, all of my mentors, like literally all of my mentors have been there for me. And then just like all of my friends I've made since I joined VO. Like, I never would have thought that moving out of the little nowhere town of Lufkin at the end of 2021 would, or was it 2021? Yeah, it was. At the end of 2021, I moved out. I had never done anything in a professional sense of VO. And so, boom, like 6 months later, I got into Crunchyroll. It's been a little over a year and I have 8 named roles. It's all a blessing. And it's all like, I'm blessed to be here and I'm happy that like the hard work that me and so many people that I've like taken classes with, they've like thrived, if not in anime and other mediums, in the indie scene, in audiobooks. There's so many people that do stuff that aren't anime or aren't video games that are making a living off of it because it's just as important. Commercials, internal stuff. You got like internal commercials, or you have like people who read things, oh, you're a new hire on the job site. Well, I'm going to walk you through. The people who do all of that are still voice actors. They're still out there doing a medium, a niche that works for them. And seeing people find their niche, find their passion. I have a friend who made her anime debut recently, and she tells everybody, it's Brie Han. Mm-hmm. She tells everybody, I want to do kids' cartoons. I want to do kids' educational stuff. She's the only person I've heard say that. And I absolutely adore that because it would be so fun to be in like a Bubble Guppy show. That would be so fun. Or just like Little Einsteins. It would be so fun. Just to like do some, be like the teacher in there that's just like, hey kids, like there's so many different things you can do in VO that express yourself. And that's why I love it. Mm-hmm. But those are all my supporters. Basically everyone I've met has like helped me pursue it, has like pushed me forward whenever I started doubting. There was a point in time where I was super in my head and I was like, I need to make sure that I'm like paying bills. So I was like, what if I just do a little less VO and do more like working my way up the chain at a restaurant? And the first person to tell me no was again my wife Alyssa, because she was just like, we did not move out all the way here to Dallas so that you could just go, no, I actually want to work at a restaurant. And I was like, okay, no, you're right. So having my friends and my family and my loved ones to push me forward is probably the biggest blessing I've had so far.
Blessing, I like that. Amen. That's good to hear. And your story about like, hey, I moved out here in 2021, which, as we all know, that was when the pandemic was going on. So moving wasn't exactly all the most advisable to people, but you went through with it with your family, and then like a little more than a year, give or take, you end up on Crunchyroll. And then I think during that time, because for those who don't know, I actually met Devon in a class for ADR, and that's where we first met. And then when I saw you for Crunchyroll, I was like, I really got to get him on here to really hear what it is that it takes to really go this distance into anime. And like you said, so many other mediums, internal videos for companies like construction, that there's that, kids shows, all of these options available that aren't just one thing, open for people to just explore and have fun with.
Yeah, it's so easy to get like to pigeonhole yourself as an anime actor because everyone basically now, like, it used to be oh, you like anime, nerd.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, you like anime, dude, what's your favorite one?
Mm-hmm.
Anime is huge. It is so easy to want to be an anime actor or a video game actor and overlook all the different things that could be fun, that could be a cool experience, and could still, again, help you pay your bills. Like, everyone wants to be in Overwatch, everyone wants to be in League of Legends, in Diablo, in whatever it is. Everyone wants to be in Crunchyroll and Bang Zoom. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what it is, those are the big ones. Set your sights for that. That's an amazing goal to have because it's a fun experience. But don't pigeonhole yourself into it. Don't forget about the commercials. Commercials, I guarantee you, if you book a big commercial, you don't have to work for like a couple of months. So then it's like over the course of those months, you're still working at like Crunchy, doing Walla, you're still booking some small video games. Like, don't forget about the other things that help because all of it is still VO. It's so easy to get lost in the I want to be an anime star. Don't forget about everything else because VO is about all of it.
Yeah, definitely. And for those who watch this channel, know that we completely support here branching out. And like you said, commercials, you book a good one, and that's your rent right there for more than just, oh hey, I got my paycheck, my first of two paychecks for the month, so now I got to get ready for that next paycheck. And where's it gonna go? My rent versus a commercial, a big name commercial. It's like, here's my rent. It's like, cool. What about next month? That's this month, next month, and probably the month after that. I'll see you in
Yep,
3 months. Like,
literally.
yeah.
Commercials commercials are harder to get into
Hmm.
because you need to go through an agent. And
Right.
I have an agent, but all of my all of my video game and all of my anime work has all been freelance. That has all been that has all been making friends. That's all been networking, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all been just like me. I'll put it this way. People call it luck, and I call it luck sometimes too. But there's a quote from, way back when, and they say it in Blue Lock as well. Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. If you're able to put yourself there, I felt prepared enough. I was like, I can be an anime actor. Whether I didn't think I was gonna book what I've booked already. I was expecting to be doing Walla for years. I was expecting to not even get in to the studio for like a year or two after I moved out here. I was thinking I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna put in the time. I'm gonna keep learning, and then I'll get there. And then an opportunity arose, and I was prepared, and I was able to take it. And so now I'm way further ahead than I ever thought I would be. So always be prepared. Always, as an Eagle Scout, always be prepared. Keep pushing forward. Keep learning. Never stop learning. Just keep going and keep meeting people. Make friends. Genuinely make friends. Like, make friends for the sake of making friends because you like that person. And then eventually one day you never know what it'll lead to. I don't ever sit there and go, oh, I'm friends with this person, so one day I'll get this. Sometimes it's like I'm friends with this person, this person, this person, this person. We're all in a big friend group and we hang out constantly. And sometimes you get to just work with those people. And that makes it so much better and so much more fun when the people you work with are your friends.
Mm-hmm.
If you treat it like a big group of, like, keep a professional like attitude, but keep it as a big friend group. That's where it becomes really fun. I go in and I crack jokes all the time at the studio. I crack jokes with people on Twitter. I crack jokes with people in Discord. I'm constantly cracking jokes because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And I do it just because I want to do it. I don't get when people I don't get how people network for the sake of networking.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I hate that word because I never want people to think that I'm talking to them because I think I can use them. And that's why I just don't like the word networking. I want to invent a new word.
It's a new
I
word.
want to invent a new word.
It's like friend working.
Friend working, yeah.
It's like my attempt at doing that things. But yeah, I agree. It's like you're meeting new people. It's a community you're part of.
It's a
And you
community, absolutely.
and you're bringing what it is that makes you an individual into this, and to make the entire whole even better than what it already was 2 seconds, a day, a year, years ago.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful community. I think either I've just been super blessed or like I'm just super lucky to just I don't think I've met someone that I have despised or disliked a whole lot in this whole, like, obviously, sometimes you like great with people. You might have been having a bad day and they didn't. So, you might just be a little off.
Yeah,
But every single person I've met, I've had a good experience with. I
that's
don't think I've really just, everyone in the community is super nice. And I love that. And it makes me feel at home. It makes me feel like I belong here. And that's what I love about it.
that's good. That's good. So, where can people find you?
You can find me. I'm mostly active on Twitter at Davon Oliver VO. I'm also semi-active on Instagram. Where is Devon? And then I'm starting to ramp up. I'm coming up with the plan, and I will begin Twitch streaming at Where's Dab on Twitch.
Perfect.
So that should be popping off here in the month or so.
That's good. And then and then for those who want to know the links, they will be linked in this video. Devon, thank you so much for just really sharing what it is you've been through that got you to this point. And I think this is be great encouraging for other people to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, no matter what people tell you, no matter what you look like, no matter what you identify as, if it's something you want to do, go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. Just chase that dream and go for it, because I want to see it. I want to see it happen.
Definitely. Once again, thank you. Hit the like, subscribe button to my channel and for more podcasts, and we'll see you guys around.